What's good? This is your boy Tico Tren, and I'm gonna talk about good for me, but not for thee too. Um, what I mean by that is there are a lot of people. The topics for today are going to be cheating, she a hoe, or as I always like to say, she a hoe. Um, and my afterthoughts on this whole entire thing because something I've noticed with a lot of times with a lot of men who this typically is what this topic's about. Men or women, for all intents and purposes, but mainly men who always get themselves in these situations where they talk about, like, they'll talk trash on somebody, but they're participating in the same thing for all intents and purposes. This one's a bit more critical about it for the fact that this one's going to touch on some other stuff for all intents and purposes. Um, but the topics are, like I said, cheating, um, she a hoe, and she a hoe, and my afterthoughts. So this is not going to be a long stream for all intents and purposes. Um, one of the many things that you'll come across, especially if you're a man, you'll hear a lot of this shit a lot from other men, which I've always found really funny. At the end of the day, because the funny thing about a lot of the men in this day and age, especially if they're raised by single mothers, is the simple fact that just like their mother, they make up many excuses for not for why they're not guilty of something. Meanwhile, when they actually are guilty of something for all intents and purposes, um, they'll make up all types of excuses, or they'll basically, you know, uh, talk shit on they'll talk shit on a female basically to make themselves feel better about themselves. Great example of that is my second topic, she a hoe, she a hoe. Um, that's always been my favorite topic when it comes to men. You'll see it on TV, you'll see it on the Maury show, you'll see it all over the damn place. But the funny thing about it that nobody ever really asked, and the elephant in the room that always bothered me about that topic is she a hoe and she this that and the other, but you fucked her though. Make that make sense to me, pimpin'. If she's a hoe and she's all this other craziness and all this other stuff, you slept with her. So what does that make you? And it's one of those things where it's like, men are men are guilty of this, but women are somewhat guilty of this too. Not as much as men are, because men will do this on live TV and literally say this about women on national TV on the Maury show. Shit like, well, she a hoe. She was a hoe when I met her, Maury. Shit like that's like, really, dude, really. But you slept with her though. But she a hoe, but you slept with her. What's that say about your character? And it's one of those things where as a human being, you have to actually look within yourself and realize that, yeah, I sound like a dumbass on live TV, or I sound like a dumbass saying that, because nobody ever really addresses the fact that this person's calling this person a hoe, and nobody's ever addressing the fact that he slept with that person, even though he's talking shit on that person, which makes him a hoe also. The same thing goes for women that always talk about men are hoes, or men are nothing but dogs, but they sleep with them. You slept with them, so that technically makes you a dog also. And one of the funny things about a lot of these people, and one of the funny things about a lot of these people when they engage in this type of behavior or they engage in this type of rhetoric, is how they always go about it and always try to make themselves seem mightier than thou or holier than thou when they engage in stupidity. And it's like, dude, you basically just try to explain away stupidity with even more stupidity. Like, please explain to me what your logic is behind this, because you're really losing me right now on this logic. Um, because it's really not starting to sound like logic. It's starting to sound like some illogical bullshit to basically counteract the fact that you just slept with a hoe. Like, legit. And it's one of those things where, or in the female's case, you're trying to counteract the fact that you slept with a dog. So it's one of those things where it's like, you got to really look at yourself, and you got to really be able to, because a lot of people can't even do that. A lot of people can't even look at themselves and realize what they have and what they don't have. And, it's one of those things where they always try to go up against somebody who has a bit more or a lot more than what they have. And they always want to, try to you know, compare or try to make themselves seem cooler and or equal and or better than what they just did for all intents and purposes. It's typically a lot of the things that a lot of these people do. And this goes for both men or women. So it's like not just exclusively women. That it's not exclusively men that do this. Women do this shit just as much as men do. Um, but the sad part about that, men are more out there about it than women are. Um, Women will talk about up many people that they've been with, whereas a guy will actually talk about a specific person that they've been with. Um, which gets amplified. It's like, well, I don't like the hoe anyway. She's a hoe. She's a trick. She's a this. She's a that. She's a this. Then I always laugh at them like, but you slept with them. Then it'll go to me. Then like you'll get the ones that'll try to be wise asses. That'll go to me. What you trying to say? You wouldn't sleep with her? No, no. There's these things called standards. And that's typically how I usually respond to those people. Like, no, there's these things called standards. Well, you can't tell me what are you gay? You can't tell me you wouldn't hit that. No, because I'm not willing to stick my dick in anything. That's typically how I roll. If the person's a hoe and I know the person's a hoe, like I said in a video before this, what's up, No Sweetheart, and what's up, 20 piece. If the person's a hoe and if the person does stupid shit, I've said this in the past. Why the hell would I want an already chewed a dog's chew toy for all intents and purposes? That's typically how I look at women who have a decent body count or women who are very loose with themselves. Why would I want a dog's chew toy? Or why do I want a dog's chew bone? Why would I want already chewed food? Or my favorite one that everybody found funny was why would I want to pass around a blunt in a 20-man smoking circle? Um, that's typically how I feel about women who have high body counts. And before you try to come at me with it's experience. No, no. You could take that to somebody else who's willing to actually tap that, but I'm not willing to tap that. Um, that on top of that, there's a lot of women I'm not willing to actually have sex with based on cultural preferences for all intents and purposes and or racial preferences. So there's a lot of women I just won't date, won't even consider dating just on culture alone. Um, so it's one of those things where like I can afford to be picky about who I date versus other people where they seem like they're just fucking desperate. If you know what I mean. Like, dude, why are you so desperate to hit that? Like it basically kind of reminds me of Sims on the internet where the tier 3 people who pay for streamers. You're not going to have a chance for that. And the sad part about that person has a boyfriend. So why are you paying for shit that you're never going to get? That'd be like me going out and buying a new car that I'm never going to drive. Why the fuck would I want to do that? What's up, Stephen Price? Why the fuck would I want to do that? Why the fuck would I go buy a brand new car and not be able to take it off the lot to drive it? In other words, why would I date a girl? Why would I pay money for a woman that I'm not going to take home? Why would I drop money on a woman that's not worth my while? Why would I spoil some heifer who's not going to give me play anyway? Like, think about that shit. I don't even drop money on family members like that. So why would I drop money on some perfect stranger who I don't even fucking know? That's typically how I operate. And it's one of those things where it's like, if I'm not getting anything in return, I'm not paying any money for the shit at all. Like, that's typically how this shit works. And people always get mad at me like, well, Tico, You, I can't believe you wouldn't hit that. Like, well, yeah, no, because there's nothing. I get nothing out of this in return. I'm getting nothing out of this in return, and that person's not worth my time or my effort or my finances, and or any headache or stress that that person comes with. That's typically how I feel about a lot of women in the Western world. For all intents, that's pretty much how I feel about all women, most all women in the Western world. Now I think about it, shit. Um, so it's one of those things where like you always end up in a mess that you're in due to your own stupid mistakes. It's nobody else's choice but your choice. I wasn't standing there next to you, twisting your arm, say, "Sleep with this bitch." You chose to sleep with that bitch. I wasn't there with a gun to your head telling you you got to sleep with this bitch or I'm gonna blow your brains out. No, that wasn't me, nor was anybody else there. You chose to do it. You have to own up to that. That's typically how a lot of this shit works. But men don't want to own up to it. They always want to try to pass it off. Well, like, well, she don't know what she talking about. She a hoe. Wait, how is she a hoe? If she's a hoe, then why did you sleep with her in the first damn place? This is typically the questions I always want to ask these guys because they always try to, downplay the fact that they slept with them. They always try to downplay the fact that they slept with them with the fact that they call them a hoe. Like that's going to negate the fact that you slept with them. So in all technicality, you support hoe culture. In all technicality, you a hoe, my dude. You a hoe. That's typically how that works. And the sad part about that, just because you downplay somebody and or refer to somebody as a hoe, if you're a man, or refer to somebody as a man as a dog, because you're a woman, that doesn't negate the fact that you still slept with that person. You still slept with that person. It changes nothing. Just because you want to get that temporary feel good moment doesn't change the fact that there's niggas like me sitting there looking at you thinking like, but you slept with them. I mean, you might can get away with a lot of other people, that'll ride with you on this fact that you just called a person a hoe or you called a guy a dog for all intents and purposes. But there's still motherfuckers that sit in the crowd that's pretty much woke saying, but you still slept with the motherfucker. Anyways. And then you get people that always say, well, that's besides the point. No, that is the point. This is the reason why you're calling this person a hoe or a dog. That is the whole entire point. That's the whole entire topic to this. What you can't tell me is that you can negate the fact that you slept with the person by calling them a hoe or a dog. It doesn't work like that. You still slept with them. You can't. It's kind of like the funniest thing I ever seen on Facebook between a gay couple. I shit you not, on Facebook, the post read, "I shit you not, you can't uneat this ass. You can ignore me, but you can't uneat this ass." That's technically the same damn thing. You can't unfuck that person because you already did. So how are you different from anybody else that slept with the person? Or how are you the same as somebody who didn't decide to sleep with that woman? And it's one of those things where like people need to start taking ownership for their decisions, their decision making skills on who they sleep with when they want to turn around and call them dogs because they got done wrong, or you know because they're not with the person no more, and they want to try to have a high five moment with the guys or girls. Basically they want to try to have a high five moment, just want to say like, yeah, I got them. No, you didn't. You still slept with them. Yeah, you got them, and you got to sleep with them, and we still need to address this topic. And that's typically the type of friend I am. And I don't really sugarcoat shit. And I've always been that type of friend where like, okay, now let's address the fact that you slept with them. Well, why you always gotta bring that up, Tico? Well, no, you did, and now you're trying to degrade them. So technically, by degrading them, you're degrading yourself. It's kind of like when that saying about when you point a finger at somebody, there's three pointing back at you. Same concept, exact same concept. And this is one of those many things that I've noticed with a lot of people where they tend to get themselves into messes that they shouldn't even be in or they don't need to be in for all intents and purposes. And it's basically. But you know he is actually more vulgar about it when he actually said it, and it was like the funniest post ever I've ever seen on Facebook ever, and Facebook left it up too. Facebook had no shame, and he's like, "Fuck it, we're keeping it." Facebook was very proud of that gay guy posting that post on that and for that day. I think I got that one coming up on my Facebook post coming up very soon on my channel. But it was like the funniest shit I've ever seen in my life. You can't uneat this ass. You can ignore me all you want to, but you can't uneat this ass. I was dying when I read that. I was like, this nigga's crazy. That part about that, the gay guy who posted that wasn't even black. Nigga was still crazy. That nigga was on point with that one. That was some funny shit. That made my day. And the sad part about that, I opened up my live stream, my feed, and usually I see a lot of dumb people just complaining about their relationships. This was actually the first thing I seen when I opened up my feed. I'm like, oh my God. This is the funniest shit I've ever seen. I was on the floor rolling when I seen that. That was like the funniest shit I've ever seen. I was on the floor dying. I was laughing so damn hard I couldn't even catch my breath. Like it was just the funniest shit. It was like the funniest shit in the world when I seen that shit. It was like too crazy. But it's one of those things where it's like you definitely sometimes gotta laugh about shit like that. Like you don't even know 20 piece. A nigga was howling. A nigga couldn't even get up off the floor. I couldn't even breathe. Like it'd be one of those things where like you ask me, okay, what was going on, Tico? Why didn't you help this person? I was busy. I was busy laughing. Okay, so you were laughing. Why didn't you help the person? Because I was too busy trying to find my breath because I couldn't breathe. That's how hard I was laughing, basically. It's one of those things where it's like I'll laugh that hard, and people tend to get upset with me when I laugh at them. But it's one of those things where it's like, okay, apparently to me, this is how I perceive it. God put you in my line of sight for my amusement, so I'm going to enjoy this. This is typically how I view life. A person that comes in my line of sight, or a person that gets jacked up in life, I view it as God put you in my line of sight to make me laugh because He wanted me to laugh today. That's typically how I feel about a lot of the shit. So if you get hit by a car, you go over the top of the car, you land on the ground because you weren't paying attention. I am going to laugh. I am going to laugh hard. If you're a woman and you're walking down the stairs and you're paying attention to your phone and you miss your step and you fall down the steps, I am going to laugh. I don't care if you're a man. If you're a man and you're doing the same damn thing too, I'm going to laugh even harder. So it's one of those things where it's like I always view any instance that happens in my life as as God putting you in my line of sight so I can laugh at you for all intents and purposes because I think he probably thought I was being a dick today and he probably thinks I need a good laugh. So anything that happens, it's pretty much him putting you in my line of sight so I can laugh about it. Um, but yeah, back to the lecture at hand. Um, the thing that I always found funny about that is typically how people always want to, downplay or excuse their behavior by calling a person a hoe or a dog for all intents and purposes, or saying that they're. Oh, another good example of women doing shit like this, like outside of the dog comments that women use is she'll say that he had a little penis. Okay, cool. Now, it doesn't negate the fact that you still slept with a little penis. If that's what you're using as your argument to try to downplay that person, you basically just got dick down by a small penis. I mean, we don't know if it's small or not, but by your accounts, you tend to get stuck with people with small penises. I'm just saying, either they got a small penis, or you're just mad about the fact that they're not with you no more. Either way, that's typically how I view that whole entire thing. And I noticed women do that. You spelled it wrong, when. But I noticed that women do that shit after a breakup or after when they're mad at a man. They tend to go to he had a small dick anyway. His dick was this small. He had a millimeter Peter, shit like that. And it's just the funniest shit in the world. And I'm always that nigga sitting there like, that doesn't change the fact that you slept with him multiple times. So obviously his dick wasn't that small if you slept with them, what, 4, 5, 6 times from what you told us in all your sexual rumps. Now all of a sudden, now that you're not together, he has a small dick. Right. And it's one of those things where it's like, you know, obviously your ego's hurt, so now you have to now you got to try to socially injure that guy's ego now by saying he has a small Peter, basically, or a small dick for all intents and purposes. And it's one of those things where I always laugh at women that do that shit because it's one of those things like, bitch, you late. You should have thought about that before you slept with them multiple times. Just saying. Just saying. Like, the same thing goes with men that call women hoes. You should have probably thought about that before you slept with her multiple times if you tried to call her a hoe. So you slept with her after you called her a hoe, you're still sleeping with her, but you're trying to call her a hoe, but you're still trying to smash, but you're calling her a hoe. Explain your logic to me, please. Because in all technicality, if you're still trying to smash, but you're calling her a hoe, that kind of sort of makes you a hoe. Or that means you just support hoe culture. Either way, you're a hoe. You sleep with a hoe, you are a hoe. You sleep with a dog, you are a dog. You sleep with a person with a small dick, you're a woman with a small dick. For all intents and purposes, that's exactly how I feel about stuff like that. And I always laugh. I just laugh at shit like that when I hear people do that, like especially men or women across the board. It just makes me laugh so fucking hard to hear people say and do shit like that. Another thing when it comes down to it is, I touched on this a little bit in the last one about cheating. Something I've always noticed about, is good for me, but not for thee, is cheating. Um, and I always laughed about this when it comes to the double standards in cheating, especially with men and women, because they both have double standards in cheating when it comes to cheating, when it comes down to it for all intents and purposes. But men's are more men's gripe against women cheating is has more than why women cheat for all intents and purposes. A woman cheating on her man for all intents and purposes. Because at the end of the day, what I've noticed with a lot of people who cheat, if a woman cheats, a guy's more likely to leave the woman than if a man cheats. If a man cheats, a woman's less likely to leave her man. You see what I'm saying? Whereas if a woman cheats, a man's more likely to be angry and leave the woman. It's typically how that works. So, and the sad part about that in this day and age, where we got like culture where women would stay by a man who was willing to cheat on them, but men are willing to walk away. Women are getting upset with men and trying to use it was only slept with them one time excuse and shit like that. And the thing that women don't seem to realize when it comes down to the whole entire I only slept with her one time or I only did this one time is the fact that there's more gravity. There's much more gravity to you cheating, you cheating outside the relationship than a man cheating outside the relationship. It's typically how that works. There's the the weight is way different. There's more weight to you cheating outside. There's more weight to you cheating outside the relationship than there is a man cheating outside the relationship for one reason. One, you get pregnant. Now you're trying to actually pass this baby off as your husband's. It's not the same as a man cheating because he can't get pregnant and he can't pass a child off as yours. You see how that works? You see how that works. That's typically the problem that a lot of women try to actually excuse the fact that, well, it's a shame I'm cheating and because man cheat. Well, no, there's more weight to it. When women would come up with, well, he could bring back a sexually transmitted disease. Oh, don't even get me started on that. You can get pregnant and bring back a sexually transmitted disease. Bam. Let's keep it rolling. If you want to have this, if you want to play this game, and typically a lot of the times, women tend to have sexually transmitted diseases that they tend to refer to as STIs now because they're women, so there's got to be STIs now. And these, even though they're infections, these infections have take tolls on a female body for all intents and purposes. A lot more than don't get me wrong. If you got chlamydia, it pretty much destroys your reproductive system if you let it go unchecked for all intents and purposes anyway. However, STIs, on the other hand, they destroy a female's reproductive system Ridiculously, she lets it go unchecked. The sad part about that is men who sleep with women with STIs can get STIs, but it ends up being like an irritant to a man. Don't get me wrong, there are a couple of them that that are a little more than an irritant to a man, but they typically wreak havoc on a woman's body if they have an STI. Like a good example of that is I'm not even gonna get into that. I'll touch on that in another story, another live stream. But it's typically one of those things where like STIs affect women greatly, their bodies greatly. So it's one of those things where it's like, oh, so you stepped outside the relationship. Now you have chlamydia. Now you bought it home. You kept it a secret. You just don't found out about it. Now you don't got no ovaries, and you're wondering why you can't have any children now. Okay, so it's one of those things where like women try to always pull is women pull that crap all the time where they try, well, it's different. No, it's not different. Or my favorite one is, you know, uh, I should be able to cheat outside a relationship. Okay, that's fine. If you get pregnant by that guy and you don't think it's your husband's, I believe you should take care of that baby yourself. Or have that man that you're sleeping with take care of the baby. That's typically how I feel about it. So if you're going to get pregnant outside of a relationship or accidental pregnant outside of a relationship, I don't believe your husband should have to take care of the baby. How about we just make it even trade? Um, and the sad part about that is, yeah, porn stars do get it. Even with all the testing and all the safety precautions in place, porn stars still get it. So it's one of those things where it's like you as a human being gotta realize as a human being that shit is real out here and shit can always hit the fan at any given time. And the whole entire cheating aspect, I've always found funny because if a man cheats, his woman is more likely to stay with them. Because the sad part about that is that signifies high value. If a woman cheats, her husband's less likely to stay with them because he doesn't view her as high value anymore. You see what I'm saying? Because her value drops if she cheats on her husband for or significant other more than her value. Because like women try to equate like cheating, a man cheating to a woman cheating to a man cheating, and they'll say, well, it's the man's fault why I cheated. Okay, so it's your fault why he cheated on you too. So if we're going to lose that logic that it's well, he wasn't pleasing me or wasn't this, that, and the other, and this is the reason why I cheated. Well, the reason why he cheated is the same damn thing because they've done studies on men who actually are in relationships. If they're fully fulfilled in their relationships, they're less likely to cheat on their significant other than any other group of men. If they're fully fulfilled and all their needs are met in their relationships, they're less likely to cheat on their significant other. Therefore, you fucked up and now he's cheating on you. That's pretty much what that means. That doesn't mean that he's just a dog. It means that you're not fulfilling your duties just as much as you can go out there and say that your significant other is not fulfilling his duties for you, and this is the reason why you cheated on him. This is typically the same arguments that y'all both bring. And the sad part about that is it doesn't work anymore for the fact that you can't argue something and then point the finger at somebody while still trying to argue a point. Because at that point, you're starting to invalidate your point. And I don't know how people always get caught up in these little rhetorics and the stupidity of the shit for all intents and purposes. Because I always find it funny. Well, you this, you that, you this, but you still cheated. And typically, when I hear a woman say that, she goes, they'll go something to the extent of, well, I still love my husband, but apparently you're not in love with your husband. That's typically what I tell her. And like, well, can't you understand my happiness? Well, how about you tell your husband what you did and see how happy you feel after all this shit comes out in the open. And that's simply what I tell women. Like, how about you tell your husband about your happiness and how happy you are about cheating on him, and see how much happy you will see how much happier you'll be after the fact. And women tend to go, well, this is how I know women know when they do wrong, and they know how to take fault. Is they'll typically say something to me, well, why would I do that? Yeah, because you know you'll be in a world of hurt if you actually told the truth to your husband. This is typically how this shit works. And it's one of those things where, like I said, men are more likely to leave their significant others if they cheat on them than women are to leave their significant others if their significant others cheat on them. Because at the end of the day, the fundamental difference is a man that could cheat on his wife has more SMV value, SME value for all intents and purposes in a woman's eye. That's typically how that works. So a woman will date a man even if even if he's cheating on her for the fact that she sees that as him having more SMV value, and he always has options. That's typically how that works. That's how a woman's brain works. Now, a man, on the other hand, will leave his wife if she cheats on him. It doesn't give his wife more. It doesn't give his wife more value. It might give his wife more value in her own head, but when it comes down to it, it doesn't give a wife more value in his head for the fact that he sees you as less than, and your value doesn't drops for all intents and purposes. So, in other words, if a woman cheats on her husband or her boyfriend, he basically sees her like Enron stock. That's the best way I can put it to you viscerally. You're Enron stock now, bitch. I'm selling, and then I'm gonna tell everybody after the fact that I sell, so I won't take mitigated damages for all intents and purposes by selling my stock. I'll be happy to sit in jail for insider stock trading, but I'm not willing to stick around with your ass for all intents and purposes. It's typically what men do when it comes to women that cheat on them. They're willing to actually take the insider trading jail time over, sticking around with a woman that cheat on them. So most times that whole entire cheaper to keep her ends up not really being cheaper to keep her for the fact that now you got to worry about other shit. If she's going to bring a baby home and try to place it on you, if she's going to do all this extra shit, because there's a lot of shit that goes into a man's thought process when his wife cheats on him. Is she going to get pregnant with this man's baby? Is she going to try to say it's my baby? Is this other, a myriad of questions, a myriad of things run through a man's head when he finds out his wife is cheating on him. Is she pregnant? If I find out she's pregnant, I'm definitely getting a DNA test. I'm not taking care of no baby. That's not mine. That's typically how a man thinks. And the sad part about that is people always get caught up in this shit and you know, wonder how these messes work. Um, and women always sit there looking like with egg on her face, talking about, I don't understand why he don't want to be with me. You cheated on him. That's why. Well, doesn't that mean I'm still valuable to him? No. That means you're valueless to him. You're pretty much cheaper than a value brand at this point. It's typically how that works. But at the end of the day, like I said, in a woman's head, if her husband cheats on her, he has more value for the fact that he has options. This is typically how a woman's brain works. Oh, he cheated on me with the secretary, so apparently I got to up my game and shit like that and be a better wife because he can always leave me for the younger woman, or he can always use me for that better model, or this other person, or another person for all intents and purposes. It's typically how that works. That's how a woman's brain works. This is why women tend to stay with men more than men stay with women in relationships for that reason, because they think he cheated on me, value, and maybe I can fix this. A man thinks she cheated on me, she means nothing to me. She has less value, and I'm about to sell her stock for all intents and purposes to that man. Because the neat thing about this whole entire thing, this good for me but not for thee thing, is a good example of women cheating is we always talk about how women women are with a husband, got a husband and he's rich and he got some money, but she's banging a pool boy or the lawn or the gardener for all intents and purposes. Funny story about that. For her to bang the gardener or the pool boy, she basically had to date a man that had money to do so. Because not too many people, middle class, have a pool boy or a gardener for all intents and purposes. You're usually upper class. You're usually in upper class if you have a gardener and or a pool boy. For all intents and purposes, is usually how that works. So she basically had to get with money so she could have access to that shit. So at the end of the day, she needed that money so she could have access to these other benefits. It's typically how that works. So all these other people are benefits to actually marrying a person with money. That's typically how that works. So at the end of the day, she's dating this person for more access to other people. It's typically how that works. The sad part about that, a lot of rich men tend to don't really date women. This is why a lot of rich men say I date women that are that are not attractive or they're very plain for that fact. A lot of rich men actually don't date trophy wives. They don't bring home trophy wives. That's something that middle class men do. Middle class men bring home trophy wives. Rich men bring home, women that are plain. Would be the aristocrat, will be the rich equivalent to, like, a Mormon, or a not a Mormon, a woman equivalent to a plain woman that's an Amish woman for all intents and purposes. Only in today's society is typically how that works. So she's not always the richest, best stock for all intents and purposes, and they date them for a reason. For that reason, for the fact that they have less value than them. A rich man's always going to date a woman that has less value than him, and doesn't think she's better than him or got more value than him. That's typically something that middle class men do. They'll date the trophy wife, or they'll date the woman that has more value than them so he can validate himself. That's typically how that works. Good for thee, but not for good for me, but not for thee. For all intents and purposes, is the best way to describe that. So it's one of those things, coming back to the actual topic at hand, that a lot of people get themselves into these messes on their own accord. The sad part about that is it's all about how you go about it, and how you present yourself at the end of the day. Because at the end of the day, what you can't do as a human being is sit up here and try to call somebody else out their name when in fact you're actually sleeping with that person. You have to take accountability. And I know we live in an era of, nobody has to take accountability because everybody's a snowflake and everybody got fifis. You still have to take accountability, because I'm still here and I'm still alive. As long as I'm alive and breathing, I will force you to take accountability. If you don't like it, I don't really care if you don't like it. And if it hurts your feelings, that's something that you need to work on. It's typically how that works. Because at the end of the day, it's all about how you as a human being progress as a human being. You can't sit up here and point fingers at other people, especially if you're participating in the same activities with that person or as that person, and try to make yourself seem better than now. Because there's people like me sitting in the crowd that go, wait, so how is that different? Well, and the sad part about that, when I ask that question, people get flustered, or they always want to get upset with me, or they always want to call me out my name or say I'm triggered. I'm asking them a question. How is that different from that person? You're doing the exact same dirt as that person. How is that different? This is typically why I always say in my live streams, my daughter Talia is a condescending prick, and I want to knee her in the chest and throw her in the bushes. The only reason why I don't knee her in the chest and throw her in the bushes is because I'm a condescending prick. That's typically how that works. So I'm not willing to actually put my daughter through some shit when in fact I'm exactly the same fucking thing as my daughter. This is typically why I'm not a hypocrite, for that reason, because I'm very honest about my shit and I'm willing to assess myself at a reasonable level, at a high level for all intents and purposes. Reason why I don't knee my daughter in the chest and throw her in the bushes, not because she's a girl, not because she's my daughter, not because she's my baby, not because she's my princess, is for the fact that I'm a condescending prick too. So I understand where she gets it from. So me knee her in her chest and throw her in the bushes would make me a hypocrite. You see what I'm saying? The same thing goes for, like I always say, I'm an honest criminal. I am an honest criminal. Therefore, I'm not going to dump on criminals for being criminals. I would be a hypocrite. Why? And it's stuff like this that blows my mind when I hear people say and do the stupid shit that they do. It's typically, like I always say, the most I'll say to a criminal is, if you're going to do criminal activity, please always have money on deck, so you can have either have money on deck or have a lawyer on retainer. If you're going to do criminal activity, that's typically what I say to criminals for all intents and purposes, and that's all I'll ever say to criminals. Like, either have money on deck to get that lawyer, or have a lawyer on retainer, so you can better yourself. Because I don't believe in being a hypocrite. I'm not going to talk shit or down somebody. Now I will say that was a bit stupid. Here's how you could have did that better. Now, now the sad part about that is normally I don't condone criminal behavior, but if I can help somebody be a better at something, I will give advice, even if they're a criminal or a drug dealer or anything that they do. I will give advice so they can actually do it a little bit better or a lot better for all intents and purposes, so they won't get themselves back in the mess they are, and so they can actually prolong themselves and have a longer sustaining life within the criminal field that they chose. Um, or I'll probably give them suggestions on criminal fields that they probably should look into. If I don't think they might, if I don't think they're really cut out for the criminal field that they chose, I'll typically give them advice on criminal fields that they should probably look into based on their skill set and their mentality. So I never really dump on criminals for that reason because, like I said, I am one. So why would I dump on somebody who's doing the exact same thing? Well, not doing the exact same things as me, but who is in the same line of thinking or the same, they have the same mentality as me for all intents and purposes, minus pedophiles because they can pretty much all go to hell. Now I'm being a hypocrite. Well, now because I'm not a pedophile, so therefore I'm not being a hypocrite. So they can all go to hell. Pedophiles can all go to hell, and they can all burn in hell, and they can all be castrated and get the death penalty for all I care. Um, that's typically how I feel about that. But at the end of the day, it's one of those things where it's like, if you're going to talk shit on somebody, remember the saying: the minute you point a finger at somebody, there's three pointing back at you. That's typically how that works. So, or that lovely saying from the Bible: people in glass houses, no, it's not even in the Bible. People that live in glass houses shouldn't throw rocks for all intents and purposes. And that's typically one of those many things that I always talk about. So I'm not going to throw a rock through a criminal's glass house when in fact I'm a criminal in a glass house. Um, or I'm not going to throw a rock at my daughter for being a condescending prick when in fact I'm a condescending prick. I'm able to assess that and realize that in myself and make it progress. I realize that just I realize, and the sad part about that, to loosely translate this, good for me, but not for thee, is typically what your mom and dad used to say back in the day when you were growing up. Do as I say, not as I do. That's what that loosely translates to. Good for me, but not for thee. Do as I say, not as I do. That's the loose translation to this title. Um, and the sad part about that, we live in a society with people where they can continuously perpetuate this shit and not ever really get out of the rat race, and they always want to perpetuate the shit. Like a good example of that, I know women who talk shit on other women that are welfare queens that are welfare queens. Like seriously, queen? Really, queen? And there's just shit like that. Like it's like there's women that talk shit on women, but they're still friends with these women. And women do this shit more often than men do. Women do this shit overwhelmingly more than men do, which is actually pretty darn funny. Well, then again, I can't say that because in this day and age, with a lot of the men being soy boys and acting like beta bitch boys, they tend to do it at the same rate. A lot of them tend to do it at the same rate as women, which is actually pretty funny. Because I've never been one to be a hypocrite. If I'm actually doing something, if I'm doing the same thing you're doing, I won't fuck with you for all intents and purposes because I don't want to be a hypocrite. If I'm not doing the same thing you're doing, I'm going to fuck with you because I get enjoyment out of it. I'm not triggered. I get enjoyment out of it. This is typically why I always call myself, this is typically why there's this thing called the internal sadist. I am a sadist. I get a kick out of your misery and pain. That's typically how that works. I'm not triggered. I'm not anything in the least bit. I'm an asshole and I'm a condescending prick and I'm going to get enjoyment out of this. It's typically how this works. The faster you figure this out, the better off we'll all be as human beings. And it's one of those things where like people always try to project their actual feelings onto me when in fact I'm actually just enjoying this because I'm an asshole. You're doing it because you're emotionally bothered by it. I'm doing it because I'm enjoying it greatly, immensely, because I'm a prick. That's typically how this shit works. And the sad part about that is like I said, it don't matter who you are. I don't care if I'm dating you. And a good example is that is like, good for me, but not for thee, is women, the saying when you're in a relationship, happy wife, happy life. I don't believe in that shit. Because I don't believe, I'm not going to sit up here and believe some shit where just because she's happy, I got to be happy. I'm happy too. No. Because the sad part about me, if you know anything about me, I'm not happy unless I'm getting enjoyment out of something. I'm not happy unless I'm getting enjoyment out of any fucking thing. Like, this pretty much goes with my whole entire saying. I'm not getting out of bed for less than $15 an hour or a good cause. That's typically how that works. Um, so at the end of the day, if you're not going to pay me $15 an hour or it's not a good cause, don't call me. Don't ask me. Don't call me for all intents and purposes. And that's pretty much how I operate. And that's pretty much how I've always been. I'm not getting out of bed for less than $15 an hour or a good cause. Um, it's typically how that works. That's the lowest I'm willing to go. Depending on the work, that's the lowest I'm willing to go. Um, so it's one of those things where like, it's one of those things where like, it's one of those things where like people need to start having standards. And if you don't have the standards, you can't sit around here and point fingers at everybody else and call everybody else out their name because you're doing the exact same fucking thing. You're a big ass hypocrite, but you don't want to admit it, and your ego's so fucking big that it's very hard for you to actually accept the fact that you're the same fucking thing. What's up, Meatbag? What's up, Artist Steve Price? What's up, McDowell to Win? What's up, Americus? So, and this is the underlying problem that I have with a lot of people in this day and age is you can't sit up here and talk shit on people if you're participating in the exact same activities or behaviors as that person. Because at the end of the day, that's the textbook definition of hypocrite. That's typically what I always say about women that always try to give advice when in fact they're not in a successful relationship or they're not in a relationship at all. I say that to men too who are not in successful relationships or relationships at all too. Don't give relationship advice if you're not in a relationship. This is typically the only reason. This is typically one of the main reason why I don't like dating coaches. If you're a dating coach or you call yourself that and you're not in a relationship, shut the fuck up and get the fuck out of here. That's basically how I feel about dating coaches. And that's the only underlying reason why I actually dislike dating coaches or pickup artists that try to act like dating coaches. That's typically why I dislike them. I don't dislike them for any other reason besides the fact that you're trying to portray something that you're not. So now you're a hypocrite. You're telling everybody to come listen to me when in fact you're not even in a successful relationship, nor have you ever really been in a successful relationship. Because to me, a successful relationship is anything 10 years plus is a successful relationship, despite the fact that it might end. If you can't last 10 years plus in this day and age, you're not in a successful relationship in my eyes. That's typically how I look at it. So if you haven't been in a relationship for 10 years plus, you're never were in a successful relationship in my eyes. That's typically how I look at it. So look at it like this. Anybody can get to 5 years in this day and age. Hell, there are people that are in it that fall in and out of relationships that been together that damn long. But the question is, can you actually stay together that long and work out your problems without falling outside that relationship for all intents and purposes? Because I know a lot of motherfuckers that say they've been together for 10 years, but they split up multiple times in between that, and now they're trying to actually say we've been together 10 years. This is typically a home tower. Let's take a break talk. No, you didn't take a break. You broke up. Your time starts all over again. That'd be like somebody going to prison and they got to do 20 years, and they say, "How about I take a break this time, and I'll come back? How about I take a break and we finish off the rest of my 20 years?" No, you got 20 years. You got to finish these 20 years unless you get good behavior. Then you can get out early for all intents and purposes. If you got 20 years, you got 20 years. If you're on death row, you're on death row. You can't take a break from death row unless they got some evidence that proves you don't need to be on death row. That's typically how this shit works. You can't do it. It just doesn't work like that. You can't take a break on a jail sentence for all intents and purposes unless it's incongruent jail sentences or something like that. As long as it's not consecutive jail sentences and the judge don't charge you consecutive jail sentences, you really can't take a break on your jail sentence. And most judges basically make you do back-to-back sentences for all intents and purposes. So you're going to be in there for a while. It's typically how that works. They just tack it on to the time you're going to be in jail. And this is typically why I have a problem with a lot of pickup artists or dating coaches that try to preach dating tips when they're not in a fucking relationship. If you're not in a relationship, shut your fucking mouth. Shut your fucking pie hole and take your ass on. If you can't even have a good, successful relationship with a non-crazy bitch, and if you're a woman, a non-crazy nigga, and when I say nigga, I mean black, white, Chinese, Puerto Rican, Asian, I don't give a fuck who you are. If you can't have if you can't have a successful relationship without dating a crazy motherfucker, that's not really conducive to your relationship. That's not really conducive to your relationship, flourishing. You have no room to talk either as a person. This is typically how I feel. You pick shit people, so therefore you can't talk on other people that are not shit people. That's pretty much how I feel about it. It'd be basically like, a person telling me, Tico, Tren, how to have a successful YouTube channel. Nigga, what? Nigga, did you see the video way back when I showed the wall, when I showed the 2 gold press plays and the 4 or 5 silver press plays? You're trying to tell me how to have a successful YouTube channel when I actually have a video with my press plays in it, in the background. Are you fucking serious? And that's typically the type of shit that I always run into with a lot of people. They talk about how they got all these subscribers and shit like that. Well, that don't make you successful because you have all these subscribers. Do you have any press plays? Then there's nothing really to talk about here. That's simply how I feel about it. No press plays? There's nothing to talk about. Like a good example of that is like, I've been talking about this recently in a lot of my videos that I actually have a YouTube rep for my other channels. I have a YouTube rep. So you're trying to tell me how to be successful. You don't even have a YouTube rep. I do. You don't. You have no room to talk to me about being successful. That's typically how this works. And the funny thing about that is I always laugh at people that do this shit because they always try to use their subs to make themselves feel good about themselves, to try to put other people down. It's typically that thing, good for me, but not for thee. Like, okay, you do know I do have press plays already. So if you don't have any press plays, I guess there's nothing here to talk about. And that's typically how I feel about people that always gloat about their numbers and how big their channel is. I typically say, and the sad part about that, I try not to bitch smack people with the press plays. I tend to bitch smack people with the whole entire YouTube rep. I have a YouTube rep. Do you? Okay, then there's nothing to talk about. It's typically how I feel about it, and it's like one of those things where it's like, I can do this either way. So at the end of the day, you're not going to come to me and tell me how to be successful when in fact I'm already successful. Good example of that is Twitch. I'm not going to rely on a Twitch thought to tell me how to be successful on Twitch. I am pretty successful on Twitch. My family has a channel on Twitch. We play video games on Twitch. My son gets more views than a lot of these motherfuckers that gloat about having all these subs. My son gets more views on Twitch, and he's 6, than a lot of motherfuckers that gloat about having subs actually have subs. He gets more views than you have subs. Let that just roll around in your head for a little bit. Let that shit sink in. So this is typically the type of behavior that you run into with a lot of these men that'll say, that'll typically shove and pass blame or shove and like try to put down something that they did to make themselves seem better, and they tend to always want to be cocky about themselves for all intents and purposes. Like a funny thing that came up recently was I'm buying a new car, so I'm doing good for myself. Nigga, I buy cars 5 at a time. As Toyota, they love me. As Toyota, they really love me. And it's one of those things where it's like, no, nigga, go away. Um, so it's like it is just the funny shit in the world. Like, I actually had a video where I talked about where I walked into the Toyota dealership about a purple Camry race edition, about a Toyota Tundra, about a about a Toyota Tundra, about a Prius, and about a Toyota Tacoma, and also bought a Toyota FJ. No, I'm sorry, I'm probably talking about Toyota Venza. All in one breath. And I literally said, I only want to pay this much money a month, this much money a month for all of them, make it all work, and get back to me on how much I need to put down. The guy looked at me like I was crazy, went to go make some calls, came back, told me how much it's going to be, and how much I got to pay, and how much I got to put down, and the deal was made, and I took all 5 of my cars home. That's pretty much how that works. That's pretty much how I shop for cars. I shop for cars in bulk for all intents and purposes. Like a good example, when I bought my daughter's cars for her King Sierra, I went to a dealership that had both Mercedes and BMW on the lot. They were next door to each other. Basically, I worked out with both of them, their financial thing, and I basically bought them both the same day. They were delivered by their King Sierras. That's typically how that shit works. So I don't just buy one, I buy 2 or more. That's typically how that shit works. So it's one of those things where, like, if you're going to come at me gloating about your life, you better come correct, or you better come bigger for all intents and purposes. If you're going to come at me gloating about something you just bought, it better be a private jet, because I don't own one of those. So I'm gonna need you to own one of those so you can be able to talk shit on me. Real shit. It's typically how I feel about that. Um, and I know people on my channel always joke about me having a private jet, but I really don't own one. I have a friend with a private jet, but I don't own one myself. And it's typically one of those things where it's like, you tend to get into these messes or nonsensical shit with people, or people seem to like co-sign on some of the nonsensical shit that some of these people say. And it's like the funniest shit in the world while I'm looking at it. I'm like, my 6-year-old got more sense than you. Why are you even talking? Like, legit. Like, legit. And it's like one of those things where it's like, you know, it just makes me laugh to the point where, like, I'm literally sitting here getting a kick out of this, like, chuckle. I'm getting my 7 damn chuckles out of this shit, because I'm never mad about shit to the point where I'm actually going to be mad. Hell, even the videos where I'm actually mad are scripted. I typically write down what I'm going to say for my videos where I'm angry. It's typically how that works. And they're written in like rap form for all intents and purposes. So there's a rhythm. There's always a rhythm to me being angry. If you can actually follow the beat and know what the actual music behind it is, you pretty much know what song I actually wrote that angry rant to for all intents and purposes. And like I said, my angry rants are scripted, because I actually write them down, then actually practice them, and then actually go and do my angry rant. Anytime I do an angry rant video, that's pretty much what it is. My favorite angry rant video is when I did a deep fake. I've done like 3 deep fakes on my channel. Of myself, that is, on my channel. Just because I just didn't feel like getting up that day. So I did a deep fake. Because I just didn't feel like getting up. So it's one of those things, the show must go on, so deep fake. So the sad part about that is when I do my deep fakes and I don't feel like doing something, I end up doing more work than I want to, just to not sit in front of the camera. Like, think about that shit. So if I can do that shit, just imagine the shit that I got. Just imagine the shit that I got at my hands. All the options I have at my hands if I can do a deep fake of myself, because I don't feel like being in front of the camera. I've done like 3 deep fakes on my channel. Um, with me being actually in front of the camera. But other than that, um, outside of that, it's more or less the fact that you always got to prove upon yourself, and you always got to be a better version of yourself. If you can't do that, and you have to make excuses, or you have to put people down to do so, you're not doing it properly. And quite frankly, I don't really want to be seen with you or hang with you, because at that point in time, you're beneath me. If you can actually do stupid shit like that, you're beneath me. I said it. You damn right. I just said it. You're beneath me. If you could do shit like that, make excuses, or say stupid shit to try to negate the shit that you did, you're beneath me. Because I'm not going to sit up here and make excuses for why I do shit. I do shit because I do shit because I can. Because I'm an ignorant motherfucker like that. That's typically how that works. I'm never going to make an excuse for doing some shit because I am who I am. You don't like it, that's just too fucking bad. I'm not going to change for anybody. I don't change for my grandma. I'm not going to change for God, Jesus, the Pope, the bishop, the priest, the rabbi, anybody. I'm not changing for any fucking body. I don't even change for friends. And the sad part about that, quiet as it's kept, if you ask anybody in the manosphere, from Mr. Forma to True Sherm to Hammerhand to Maxwell, they'll tell you in a heartbeat. Tico Tren is a cool guy to work with, but he's a fucking asshole. They'll tell you that in a heartbeat. He's a fucking asshole. And he's very proud of his assholeness. But his redeeming qualities is he's cool to work with, and he's always willing to roll up his sleeves and help other brothers. It's that simple. He's always willing to help another brother mentally, financially, emotionally, and physically. But he is an asshole. Every single last one of them will pretty much tell you that about me. It's that simple. So I'm not going to change for anybody if they pretty much all know I'm an asshole. Hell, Mr. Elite even knows I'm an asshole. He actually said that in the video, but he says there's things behind the scenes that you don't even know that Tico do for other people. In his one video, Tico's a cool dude despite the fact that he's an asshole. He basically said it nicely, but he pretty much knows. The same thing goes for Casual Bachelor. He knows. Anybody that's ever been in close proximity to me or been in a server with me knows I'm an asshole. This is not some new phenomenon. Like, legit, it's not new. I've been like this all my life. It's one of those things where I always joke about saying I was born like this. I was born an asshole, pretty much. And it is what it is. Like culturally, I am an asshole. Culturally, I am one. And a red pill lesson for a lot of people who don't get this about a lot of people, especially in the Western world. A red pill thing that I'm going to drop on you in the Western world, and people who actually are from other cultures can actually confirm this shit. If a person doesn't talk to you in the Western world, if they don't talk to you, or they refuse to talk to you, or they don't respond to you, it's not the fact that they don't know English. It's the fact that they just don't want to talk to you. That's a red pill lesson for everybody in the Western world. That goes for Arabs, that goes for Latinos, that goes for Asians, that goes for anybody from any walk of life. From any walk of life, if somebody in a Western, if somebody from another culture doesn't respond to you or talk to you, it's because they don't want, it's not the fact that they don't know English, it's the fact that they just don't want to talk to you. And that's their way of being an asshole. Everybody from every walk of life, every culture outside the United States is an asshole to people within the Western world. If they don't respond to you, it's not the fact that they don't speak English, it's the fact that they just don't want to talk to you. That's a red pill lesson I want everybody from the Western world to take away from this. Because there's a lot of Latinos a lot of people that'll say, well, obviously they don't speak English. No, they speak English, they just don't want to talk to you. That's typically how Latinos roll. Just because they're not talking to you, or you don't think they can speak English, it's not the fact that they don't speak English, it's just the fact that they don't want to talk to you. They don't deem it necessary to respond to you or talk to you. That's typically how a lot of us roll. Same thing goes for Jamaicans. I know Jamaicans that'll play stupid in a heartbeat. Like my favorite one is the one Jamaican lady in a store with a backpack. Now the store says no backpacks, leave them at the front desk. She walked in, she goes so confidently, without a shadow of a doubt, she goes, I can't read. Literally walked to the back, we did all her shopping, came back up, told the woman, that's too bad, I can't read. And checked her stuff right out. That's typically a Jamaican for you. They're dickheads, they're assholes. The sad part about that, a lot of these people in a lot of these other cultures, they tend to be more conservative about their assholeness for all intents and purposes. But every single culture in this world that's not Western world, they're typical assholes. They can be assholes, and they all base are assholes for all intents and purposes. That's typically how that works. So that's a red pill lesson I want everybody to take away from this live stream. Besides improving yourself, like I'm pretty sure America's can confirm that because I think he is half Arab, half Arab, half Latino, or half Arab, half Arab. Period. Arabs do that shit a lot. Indians do that shit a lot. They'll pretend like they don't know what you're talking about. My favorite thing I do to people, especially in Cleveland, is I'll say, I'm not from around here. I enjoy doing that shit immensely to people. I don't know. I'm not from around here. I'm just visiting. That's simply what I do to a lot of people because I'm a dick like that. I'm not from, especially if I don't want to help you and don't nearly deem me necessary to help. I'll tell you, I'm not from around here. Even if I live there, even if I own a residence there, I'll still tell you I'm not from around there. That's typically how I roll. So I'm not just a dick online. I'm even more of a dick in person. So this is Tico Tren in person, minus the laughter. So yeah, so I'm able to actually admit who I am as a human being, and actually able to either be okay with it or fix it if I need to, or make adjustments for certain settings if I need to. That is typically what I want people to take away from this good for thee, good for me, not for thee stream is always, always, always be willing to better yourself. Men, women, transgender, dog, Apache helicopter. I don't give a damn what you identify as. Always be willing to take care of yourself and better yourself. It is what it is. Because the minute you make excuses for not wanting to better yourself, there's always going to be a motherfucker like me that's going to look at you and go, wait a minute, you're full of shit. Or wait a minute, quit using excuses. Or blah, 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 blah. All I hear is excuses. You're going to get that from me because I'm that friend. I'm that person. I'm that steadfast person that's always going to do that to you and give you that reality check. Like, all I'm hearing is excuses. Because I do that shit to my children. I do that shit to everybody. I do that shit to my mother and my grandmother. All I'm hearing is excuses. And it's like, it doesn't matter who you are. If I do it to my family, what the fuck do you think I do to you? It's like, so it's one of those things where I always want people to better themselves and always be better and do better by themselves. That's typically how that roll. I don't need you to be at my standards. I just need you to be looking like or seeming though or actively trying to improve yourself for all intents and purposes. And the sad part about that is at the end of the day, you would never be able to compare me to you because at the end of the day, my standards are always going to be a lot higher than yours when it comes to dating or life or the shit that I eat. Like a good example of that, I get fucked with in the live stream about Johnny Walker all the damn time. That's what I drink. I like my Johnny Walker Blue. Shoot me. It cost me, the cheapest I found so far is $36 a shot. Shoot me. I like to enjoy my life. That's typically what it is. So if I go out and I usually go out to bars that actually carry my drink of choice. And like I said, the cheapest was at one point for a shot was $50 a shot. Then I found this little bar, this good restaurant in Cincinnati, where it's $36 a shot. So yeah, that's the cheapest I found thus far. So I like my Johnny Walker Blue. What you gonna do about it? While everybody else is around here talking about Hennessy and Cavassier, I'm too busy drinking $36 shots over here. for all intents and purposes. So it's one of those things where it's like, I have standards, and I'm not willing to lower my standards for any fucking thing. That's typically how I live. If you don't like it, that's just too fucking bad. You don't have to live up to my standards. All I want for you is the best for you and to improve yourself. I can give a shit whatever the fuck else you're doing, as long as you're always willing to improve yourself or improve upon yourself, and always be willing to treat yourself. Because every person deserves to be treated. Every person deserves to treat themselves. Some do it way too much. Some do it way too fucking much. Mostly women. There's some men that do it way too much too, but mostly women do it too much. You got to learn how to rein it in sometimes, and be very, like, you don't always, because the sad part about that, if you always treat yourself, it's not really treating yourself anymore. Now you're overindulging, and that's a problem. Now you're turning your treating yourself into a habit for all intents and purposes. Never overindulge in something you like doing, unless it's like something that's safe for you for all intents and purposes. But drinking and, like, I look at it like this: never overindulge in something you enjoy doing if it takes away from your productivity work-wise, or you takes away from you financially, and it'll take a hit on your household financially. Never overdo something if it's that case. That's like pretty much, because at that point you're pretty much gambling. At that point, you're gambling with your life at that point, or your finances, or your productivity at that point if you're doing so. So if you're overindulging in Johnny Walker Blue, you're probably an alcoholic. If you're overindulging in getting your hair and nails done, you're probably financially strapped when it comes to your household, or your children probably look like Hurricane Katrina survivors if you have them. It's typically one of those things. So never overindulge in things you love to do if it affects you productively, time-wise, or financially. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the stream. Thank everybody for coming. Thank you, Americus, McTown to win, 20 piece, Stephen Price, McTown to win. I already said McTown to win. No Sweetheart, and everybody else that showed up in the chat. And thank everybody and Meatbag, and thank everybody who showed up, who were lurking in the background, who didn't respond. Y'all have a blessed day. Be good to yourselves. Treat yourself like milk. Do not spoil yourselves. Always improve upon yourself. Do better by yourself. And always be willing to learn and keep an open mind to always improving yourself. Never settle. Never fucking settle. Y'all be blessed and have a good day. To a $300 bottle. $300 a bottle. Yes, it is. And I enjoy every bit of that $300.